Everybody thinks of dust collection as dust they can see. The important part of dust collection are the particles you can't see.
25 years in, and Oneida Air Systems was more successful than it had ever been. With its versatility in offering dust collection solutions for any application in small to medium shops, Oneida Air had established itself as a leader in the woodworking industry. Ever the more curious, Oneida Air discovered a new problem in the world of dust collection, one which was previously absent. Woodworking tools were changing, and as such, dust collection as a whole would have to follow suit.
What the company has been good at is spotting and seeing trends and changes, and it's because we're dealing one-on-one with our customers every day. But what we saw happening is that tools were again evolving or continuing to evolve. In the days of old, the ports were larger, they needed more CFM, the tools themselves were bigger. The tools just seem to be getting smaller, more compact, more portable. Those tools need a smaller dust port. They're all being built with, used to be 6-inch ports, then it was 4-inch ports, became more common. And now it's pretty rare to find a lot of these tools that don't have a 2 1/4 or 2.5 inch fitting on the back of them. Those needed a different kind of technology. You can't use the same collector I used 20 years ago.
There was a product space that wasn't being addressed. What the Supercell is about is high pressure, high volume. And when you compare that to other dust collection, you either have high pressure, let's say like a shop vacuum, right? Or high volume, a typical dust collector, but it's low pressure. So what the Supercell is doing is combining the two. And in that capability range, nobody else is doing it.
A lot of that was trying to fill the in-betweens, a smaller cyclone, because a lot of guys, they're in their cellar and you have 7 feet head space, basically. They don't have huge amounts of room, and they needed something that they could put in their shops. One system could handle multiple tools, which has always been a hard thing to do.
It was different technology for us. Oneida was a company that we were used to building more or less traditional dust collectors. All of this was a paradigm shift for both Oneida in production, but also for the market. Took some time to learn and kind of learn what worked and what was needed, but I think we've done a pretty good job getting through that.
And thus, the Supercell was born. And soon after its release, it was met with critical acclaim.
The award-winning Supercell from Oneida Air Systems represents a revolutionary advancement in dust collection technology.
Because it's not big collector, the power is deceptive for the size, but it was pretty much like everything, people are a little skeptical at first. As again, a few people were getting this, we showed them that it worked, and a few people are trying it out, and some of the influencers, and it's like, holy moly, this thing really does work and does what it says. One person tells another, and somebody comes over to their shop and really sees that it's actually working, and it's like, wow, this is exactly what I was looking for, and it's finally here.
We were charting a new trajectory with some product lines that did not exist previously until you realize that it really is in a class of its own. Trying to make comparisons on horsepower or CFM or the traditional metrics that people were looking at was difficult. And learning how to communicate that to customers and market it and answer questions was a challenge.
So the dust collector that we settled on for our shop is going to be the Oneida Supercell. And there's a couple of reasons why we decided on this. Mainly it's because it's high CFM and high static pressure. So this is the perfect dust collector to have in 1 or 2 man shops or garage shops where you do have a bunch of those 2.5 inch ports mixed in with your larger 4-inch and even up to 5-inch ports.
With the world's first and only universal dust collector having been invented, Oneida Air was on a path that seemed unstoppable. Then, in March of 2020, the world went on an unprecedented and harrowing pause. Oneida Air had no choice but to comply with the countrywide mandate to halt in-person business activity until further notice.
It's an uneasy feeling, to come in, to own a business and come into work and then be told can't go to work or people can't come in. Our business is not one that, at least most of it, can be done remote. We build products, we take metal and turn them into finished goods. Can't do that from home, We were really afraid, when we started getting news of shutdowns and what was going to go on.
At the beginning of the pandemic, nobody knew what was going to happen. I remember, I think it was March 19th, where the plan was, okay, everybody has to go home and work from home. And I was packing up my desk, not knowing whether I was ever going to come back.
Oneida always has been a good company. They never overextend themselves. And Robert was saying, we're in a good position. Everybody's going to keep their job and we're still going to get paid. Don't panic. We're going to get through this.
So we had a big meeting upstairs. Jeff and everybody were there. And they said, everybody, we're shutting down the plant till further notice.
You know, I remember coming in and rumors and things going on, and you're like, what the heck? And then it was like, okay, we need to switch gears. We can't be with each other. How are we going to do this? It was scary because it was like, what is the future going to hold? What is going to happen with our business?
Due to the nature of their work in supporting dust collection, Oneida Air Systems applied it to the New York State government to be deemed an essential business. That request was approved, and so Oneida Air set to work on how to operate their facility safely to support pandemic efforts.
Then all of a sudden that night, my phone rings. It was Mark Everts. Hey, Phil, Robert asked me to ask you if you'd be willing to work through this. It's only going to be you and one other person. And I said, well, yeah, no, not even thinking about it. I said, for Robert, yes. And that Monday, driving into work, there is nobody on the road. Nobody. It was eerie. So basically, it was just me and him, receiving stuff in, sending stuff out to Powder Cove, receiving that stuff in, shipping stuff out. It was hectic. Was it worth it? Absolutely.
We wanted to help, and what could we do for the pandemic? A lot of our customers pivoted and did things to help the pandemic. We had shops that ran CNC routers that switched over to make face shields, and we had shops that were making, doors for hospitals and partitions. So we quickly found ourselves to be kind of a second-tier supplier to people that really were on the front lines helping the pandemic and the efforts.
People were exploring different things to do because now everything was shut down. So that was kind of a boom to our industry because a lot of people was like, I want to start woodworking. I need a dust collector.
The business itself did really well, right? Because there was a lot of funding that became available for businesses that were going to invest in their equipment. And then pandemic hit, and it was like, more money, more opportunities. And I think that carried us through. And we were, struggling to kind of keep up with everything.
Oneida Air made its return with its release of the Super Dust Deputy 4.5 Cyclone Separator, the benchtop, and its miniature counterpart, the larger 2.5 iteration of the Dust Deputy, and the newest member of the Dust Deputy family, which received the opportunity of a lifetime.